All right.
So Florida State, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Boston College in Dublin. Are you going?
No, Florida State, Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech in Dublin.
Yeah.
Are you going?
From today? No.
You should. Why isn't Wes Durham doing that game?
Let's see.
You didn't want to.
Do I have a game that day? I think the night before. The very important. The night before I have a
Falcons.
very important preseason game. Very important preseason game. I hate to tell you where I might be when that game starts at noon on that day, because it starts at noon Eastern after game day.
Right.
3-hour game day live from Dublin.
Beautiful.
Company likes for me to push the product when
That's fine. That's all good.
That game's going to start at noon, 12:08. 16 or 17.
Yeah.
I'll be on that. I'll almost be done. I'll play Calhoun, Georgia. I'll play Fields Ferry, great little track, Bermuda Greens, drains well, that kind of place.
So we talked to Tom Luganbill earlier.
Oh boy!
And he said if we, he looks forward to working with you.
We're going to have a blast
if we can get him off the golf course.
Oh, off. I'll be off the golf course plenty.
So why don't we get tips? Why don't we get Wes Durham's golf tips during the year on Twitter or Instagram?
Same reason we don't get yours.
Yeah, well, I'm not helping anybody. That's the problem.
It's a fact. I'm not helping anybody either. Although, shout out to Parker McLaughlin, the short game chef, for helping me reinvent my wedge game.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I watched some YouTube videos, although I hear that's the worst thing to do. You've cashed in when that happens, but it worked for me.
That's all my son watches.
Yeah.
That's how he's learned. I'm doing well.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you,
How the
too.
Hurricanes? Everybody good? We signing players? What do we got? I got to get my hockey
No,
for you.
we haven't. No,
Okay.
they're not.
All right.
They have to sign 2 of their own players. You can just listen to the Canes Corner podcast. I update you all the time.
Okay. There
There's a fresh 20-minute episode right there for you.
Okay.
You can do that before you make the, when you're making the turn.
All right. Sounds good.
It's 20 minutes. Available wherever you get your podcast and live on YouTube. We get here and it's all about narrative. What are your thoughts? I'm not asking you. I mean, I didn't criticize Jim Phillips from what I heard yesterday. I thought, or Monday, what I heard from Jim Phillips was forceful, was determined, was confident in the league's position. So let's just get this out of the way. Your thoughts on, what the league is dealing with and trying to fight on 2 fronts off the field.
I am reserved myself to the point that the litigation is the litigation and the games are the games, if you will. So for me, it's like, I don't know if it was Vicky and I went to Canada early July for a few days. Or early June, I should say, for a few days. And I'm not sure at some point in Canada, I just didn't say to myself, you know what? At some point, they're going to decide something,
right,
and then I'll deal with it then. And that's kind of where I am. I really have tried to, and this is not to indict anybody whose lawyering involves, watching Perry Mason. And if you're old enough to know who that is, then you know who I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm in a scenario where I'm trying to stay informed by reading people who actually can tell me things as it relates to what's going on. And there are people out there doing that.
Yep.
And they're doing it at a very high level, and I'm grateful for their expertise. So that's kind of how I'm germinating whatever thoughts I have about where Clemson, Florida State, and the ACC are. The compelling thing for me is this. The fact that the document was signed twice by every institution really leads me to believe that we're kind of looking for a needle in a haystack here, and I'm not sure.
Definition of is in the case of Clemson.
We've gotten to that. We've gotten to the Attorney General wanting to see memos, I guess, in Florida.
Yeah, the Attorney General didn't get anything she wanted.
No, not really. So at this point, let's just expedite this process along. And if you really, really want to go somewhere, then that's where the private equity part kicks in.
Right.
You follow me?
Yes.
So that's a whole nother issue.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be easier for me between now and late August, mid-August, whatever, to just lock in on what my job is, which is to do the games.
Wes Durham is joining us here. Last thing on this.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I have not spoken to any attorney, 0 attorneys who think that the ACC's position is anything other than, they're good.
Right.
So to me, and I always said this about Florida State's position this was all designed to get a settlement. I don't think they're going to like the settlement, and even they know where the settlement is likely going to be because they've even floated something higher than $500 million as like full freight to get out, which if you're the ACC, that's what I would do. especially if you're confident in your legal position. But aside from all of that,
Sure.
I don't understand why Florida State doesn't do this. If you're even thinking about private equity, just supplement what you already have with private equity, if you can even do this, if the league will allow them to do this, and bridge the gap yourself. Because competitively speaking, there's no better place for Florida State football than where they are.
Same for Clemson.
Same thing for Clemson.
Right.
You don't need that much private equity to bridge the gap. Am I thinking about it in too simplistic terms?
You are thinking of it, and by the way, Florida State and Clemson are not the only schools in that category.
Right.
They just happen to be involved in litigation about potentially the conference they're in.
Right.
There are other schools. Now, I do know this from talking to some people who dabble in that industry, that there are schools who are looking at PE to bail them into survival.
Right.
Rather than
especially with House.
They go to extinction, they want to bail into survival, not bail out into extinction. That's where private equity, I think, is going to become common ground. However, structure of institution, structure of athletic department, structure of a lot of things has things to do with how private equity gets handled. Like, some places you're going to have to put on steel gloves. Some places you can put on rubber gloves. To handle that private equity.
Right.
People don't understand. They think private equity is Daddy Warbucks comes along, strikes a check, and hands it to you. No, then when he strikes the check and hands it to you, he's essentially telling you, I'm now your boss.
Right. Jim Phillips said, nothing is for free. That was his answer to the private equity question.
It's the best answer, too. Nothing is for free.
Yep.
And I don't think – and look, take a look at who else is investigating private – if the ACC went for private equity as a conference, and see, Brett Yormark floated that idea.
And Brett Yormark
is my man. I mean,
he's entertaining.
Yeah, but he is exactly what they wanted. Marketing, sales, promotion.
Yeah.
And he's good at it.
Right.
And he's very good at it. But is he selling me the, Mercedes-Benz or is he selling me the Ford Granada?
Yeah.
That Ricardo Montalban, the genuine Corinthian leather. The
I have a Hyundai Santa Cruz. I call it a modern-day El Camino. He could be selling the El Camino, which is in its day was pretty sweet.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, Adam, because as you and I have talked about for years, we keep creeping and creeping and creeping to the edge of where all what we know in college athletics goes away.
I think football separates from everything, and that's where we're headed.
I don't disagree with you.
I think that's right. All right. Let's talk about football. Let me ask you about new coaches.
Sure.
Let's start with Manny Diaz.
Yep.
Because I'm going to talk to Manny after the show. It'll air tomorrow.
Okay.
My first question to him, and I've already spoken with him, but I am curious: how is he different now than when he took over at Miami?
That's a good question, and I asked him that in the spring. We had to sit down in the spring, and I talked about what.
Maybe I stole it from you. It's very possible.
No, I asked we were there to the spring, and I asked the same question in the spring. What is it about now that's different when you got Miami? And he said it would be foolish of me not to take lessons and experiences from Miami and to a degree his 2 years at Penn State, and not put them into play coming back to Coach Duke. I think he's got, number one, I thought he did a really good job with his staff. I thought the continuity pieces and the guys he was able to kind of bring in and their experiences, some connectivity directly to him, some indirect connectivity. Patke and Brewer, the two coordinators, fit that kind of bill. Look, I'm pretty excited about him, but I think he's also the realist about where this is.
Sure.
And look, they went and got a real quarterback in the portal. That guy's a real quarterback, okay? And he's got a cannon for an arm. But it's going to take a collaborative effort of Duke. I think they're actually, and this is credit to Mike Elko and the momentum. And that's the other thing, by the way, that impressed me about Manny. He respects the work Mike Elko put in there in 2 years. And
Elko did a good job.
He did. And embraces a lot about what it is and knows that he benefits from that work now in a way where some of the heavy lifting Mike did, Manny may not have to lift as heavy an item. And I believe that my biggest concern about them is they were light in the offensive line in the spring.
Right.
I thought they recovered from some of the portal guys defensively. I like really who they are. I love Trey Freeman at linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan. I like Stinson and Rivers in the secondary.
Yep.
Jordan Moore is an underrated star nationally.
What a good player.
Yeah, good player. I really like Dalmolin coming back to football, and I think Jaquez Moore can have a nice year running the ball. But I want to be careful with this. I don't want to say 2 and I don't want to say 7, right? I want to kind of watch it unfold. I hope Murphy stays healthy. I hope that Duke stays healthy across the board because I think if they're healthy, I think they just add to the depth. In the bigger picture, I think it's probably 2 years away.
Sure.
But I think that he capitalizes on some stuff here early. And I can't say enough about the support the institution has now put into that product as a result of what happened the last 2 years.
I know they have new locker rooms over at the Yo Center. They were very proud of that.
Yeah, they should be.
Tweeted out pictures. I put the league in tiers.
Me too.
I have Florida State and Clemson in the top tier. And actually, Florida State's probably ahead of Clemson, although who knows.
I don't disagree.
And I think the next tier.
Why is that the only 2 you got?
Yeah, because I think those are the only 2 that I know in terms of all of their personnel and their coaching is going to maximize the win total. No, sure. I mean, I hate to say this. I think Mario Cristobal has to prove that he can get the most out of the roster.
I think that's exactly right.
7-5 last year.
Right.
3-5 in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the walking definition of how did you do that?
Correct.
How did we get to that? So Miami, State, Virginia Tech, Louisville, maybe SMU, to me is the next tier, right?
It's interesting. I have 6 schools in my first tier.
Okay.
I have Florida State, Clemson, NC State, Miami, Virginia Tech, Louisville.
And then SMU
I have SMU, Cal, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Carolina in a middle 5. And then Pitt, Wake, Duke, Virginia, BC, Stanford in the bottom.
Maybe it's just because I'm a homer. I have Duke. I have Duke in that tier with the Tar Heels, and Cal is going to be interesting.
I love Cal.
Do you?
I like SMU and Cal more than I like Stanford. I think Cal is
Stanford
incredibly well. People in the
year.
ACC are going to find out how good a coach Justin Wilcox is.
Okay,
he's a really.
We
good
know
coach.
They can run the ball.
He's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, I'm so good. I'm so glad Jade Knott's in this league. And Ulavea, the rookie linebacker who's Pac-12 freshman defensive player of the year, is a really good player. Now, Stanford is a little bit like Duke. Stanford's like a year or 2 away. They fight some things that other schools fight, lack of ability to get kids from the portal. They do get some. It's not for everybody, right? That kind of thing. Troy Taylor, an incredibly successful coach at Sacramento State. I watched him in the FCS playoffs and things like that. In fact, Troy Taylor's team played Cam Ward, an incarnate word, in the FCS playoffs a few years ago. And I'm telling you, if you can find the game on YouTube, it is sick.
Really? Okay.
I mean, it's crazy how good that game was. So that being said, I think Stanford's a couple years away. Rhett Lashley knows the ACC. Don't ever forget that this fall. I mean, he and I have talked a couple different times because I had great visits with him when he was with Miami.
Sure.
And I actually met him when he was first at Auburn years ago. But Rhett and I have had conversations where he knows this league. That's a benefit people are not thinking about.
Yeah.
Adam, have you looked at their talent level offensively?
They're very good, and
their defensive front is really good.
And the schedule is very conducive to having a good season, which you can say about most of the teams in that I put in my second tier.
Okay.
Most of the teams there have schedules that are conducive to winning.
Right.
The Wolfpack. I've been saying this for a long time. I've never been that concerned with, okay, they didn't win 10 or all of that. I think NC State's had a really, really great program for who they are for a long time under Dave Durham.
Absolutely.
So stable, great at player development, putting guys in the NFL, especially a lot of defensive linemen, a lot of defensive players, quarterbacks too. But this is an opportunity for them where, I mean, 9 wins is almost a minimum for them. And now, saying that about NC State, there are people that will lose their minds. I just said that out loud. But I look at it, if they go 8-4, I'm going to that wasn't very good. But barring like a rash of injuries, and I hope they don't have that.
I just don't know that's going to happen.
I hope not.
I think look, I am such a big fan of the layering process of what he's done there that I just think they are more in position to be 9, 10, 11 than they are 7-5. I just think that, number one, I think the kid at quarterback's talented, and he's got to stay healthy.
Sure.
But their ability to run the ball.
Jordan Waters, kid from Duke.
Oh, my God.
What a great between the tackles.
From Metropolitan Fairmount, North Carolina.
I talked to him about McDonald's. It's like he was looking forward to getting home and eating McDonald's.
Fairmont. You know who else was from Fairmont?
Who?
The great Rod Griffin.
Look at that.
One of the all-time great Wake Forest players. All-American 1977, 78, 79, right along the era of Phil Ford. Shout out Phil Ford. Who,
there you go.
Whenever I mention Rod Griffin in Fairmont, North Carolina, Phil loves it. But that's what I mean. Jordan Waters almost like completes who they are skill-wise.
Incredible.
Okay, so take all the excitement of the depth they've got in skill. They're going to be okay in the offensive line.
Yeah,
right?
I think they could be more than okay.
Yeah, and now defensively, okay, I know Peyton Wilson's not there, kids.
I know, right.
I get it. He was a spectacular player. But at the end of the day, they're still pretty good on defense.
I trust Tony Gibson on defense too, and Dave Doran, because it's a collaborative
You could give
effort.
Tony Gibson 11 pepper shakers. He'd be good. Love that guy.
So, yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for the Wolfpack. Playoff is at 12.
Yeah, and funny how we talk about 16. We haven't played 12 yet.
Right. Well, because here's why. We know where it's going. Like, as soon as the NFL expanded to 17, we knew it was going to 18.
Right.
I mean, and that's an inevitability. It's going to happen either next year or the year after, whenever they can hammer out the CBA. So,
we're going to 18 in the league. No question.
Yeah, right. But in college football, we're going to ultimately be at 6. I actually think we're going to be more than 16. I think down the road we're going to be at 24.
If we get to the Super Leagues, you're right.
It also all depends how many teams are playing that. How many teams are playing? You call it Super League. How many teams are playing that? I'll call it Premier League. How many teams are playing Premier League?
48,
college football.
48 to 72.
Oh, I think it's a lot closer to the lower number there.
The 48 number.
Yeah, because how many schools are really prepared to be paying $25 million a year to their football players?
Oh, God. Just none.
Right.
None.
So
again, remember what I said earlier about private equity?
Yes.
It's a bailout to survive.
Uh-huh. That second tier of football is going to be a sweet spot for a lot of schools. Maybe a lot of schools in this league.
You're thinking like I'm thinking, though. You and I follow.
We talk a lot.
We Premier League and Champions.
Yes.
You and I are thinking all the same line.
You good? You good with West Ham?
Yeah. I'm okay. New manager.
Yeah. Lopetegui knows what he's doing.
Yeah. The tour is in California. No, the tour's here. It's Crystal Palace tonight in Tampa, and then someplace in Orlando, I think. Wrexham's on the West Coast.
Wrexham is on the West Coast. We just had Manchester City and Celtic at Chapel Hill.
Full, right?
Yes. And
I heard, by the way, shout out, he's not here. They did special Man City light blue cups.
Did it say Etihad on it?
No, it had
Pep's face?
No, it had Manchester City's logo.
Oh, wow.
Special. I'd like one of the special He's Not Here Manchester City cups, too.
Very nice.
Become available, shout out.
I was at Chelsea Wrexham last year. I really want to go see Liverpool and United at Williams-Brice in Columbus, in Colombia.
Wow, that could be 1,000 degrees.
I know.
With 165% humidity.
To watch a bunch of teenagers play.
Wow.
Wes Durham, I appreciate your time, my man.
It's great to see you.
Nice to see you,
By the
too.
way, just so you know, hour and a half ago, there was a guy here wearing a Maryland hat and a Maryland shirt.
Lost. Very lost.
And I sang the fight song.
Did you?
Maryland. Maryland will win.
Between you and I,
yeah,
you're the only one here who can sing the fight song.
You got the flipping degree.
I know. I never knew the fight song.
I don't know the whole fight song. I just know that part. I told Van Pelt, I can do the letters and we'll win.
I just know that we also said go to hell, Carolina, when I was at school. Yeah. That's all I know.
A lot of people did.
Well, that's true. We were not alone.
A lot of people still do.
Yeah, exactly right.
By the way, we went through this and did not talk about Carolina. Just so you know.
I'm not bullish.
I'm not either. At this point, it's a prove it situation.
I hope they do well. I mean, I'm not rooting against them. I hope they do well.
All right, Minnesota's a huge ACC week 1. Carolina, Minnesota, Miami at Florida, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Atlanta. They're all like in the spotlights.
Yeah. Oh, Clemson, Georgia in Atlanta.
Clemson, Georgia, and Atlanta. Rather.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big opening weekend. Yeah. That's Wes Durham, voice of the ACC. The reason the conference makes money.
Go Canes.
Yes.